The morning sun peeked through the clouds as Dr. Maya Richardson stepped out of her modest apartment building. Today wasn't just any Monday. It was her first day as the new police chief of Westbrook, a mid-sized city with a troubled police department. She'd moved from across the country where she'd built a solid reputation as a firm but fair commander who wasn't afraid to shake things up when needed. Maya glanced at her watch. 7:15 a.m. She had plenty of time before her official introduction at T. Tharsar, instead of her usual uniform with all its badges and symbols of authority. She had chosen to wear a simple navy blue pantsuit. She wanted to get a feel for the city, to see it as a regular citizen would before stepping into her role. Might as well grab some coffee, she thought, spotting a local cafe called Morning Brew at the corner. The smell of fresh pastries and coffee beans welcomed her as she pushed open the door, the little bell above it announcing her arrival. "Good morning. What can I get for you today?" asked the friendly barista with a warm smile. "Just a black coffee. Please large." Maya returned the smile, taking in the cozy atmosphere of the place. Local artwork on the walls, mismatched furniture that somehow worked together, and the soft hum of conversation from the morning regulars. "New in town?" the barista asked, handing over the steaming cup. Maya nodded. "That obvious, huh? Small town. We notice new faces. I'm Tina, by the way." "Maya, nice to meet you." "Tina." As she paid for her coffee, Maya noticed a framed newspaper article on the wall about community policing initiatives that had failed to take root in Westbrook. The headline read, "Another year, another empty promise." She took a moment to read it, making mental notes. This was exactly why she'd been hired, to turn things around, to rebuild trust. Finding a quiet corner table, Maya pulled out a small notebook from her bag. She had reviewed the department files extensively before accepting the position, but now she jotted down her immediate priorities once again. Address the use of force complaints that had tripled in the last 2 years. Implement proper de-escalation training. Establish a civilian review board. Create youth outreach programs. The mayor had been surprisingly candid during her interview. "Our department has problems, Dr. Richardson. Deep ones. We need someone from outside who isn't afraid to step on toes." Maya took a sip of her coffee, watching people walk by through the window. Workers hurrying to their jobs. Parents walking children to school. Teenagers with backpacks waiting for the bus. These were the people she would be serving, the community she needed to understand. Her phone buzzed with a text from the mayor. "Looking forward to introducing you to the force today. Fair warning, not everyone's happy about an outsider taking charge." Maya smiled slightly. She was used to resistance. In her 15 years of police work, she'd faced plenty of pushback, especially as a black woman in a field still dominated by white men. But she'd always let her work speak for itself. She finished her coffee and gathered her things. The city hall was just a 10-minute walk away, and she wanted to enjoy the morning air. As she stepped outside, she noticed how the neighborhoods changed even within a few blocks, from well-maintained storefronts to buildings clearly in need of repair. The economic divide was visible in the architecture itself. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was her sister. "Knock 'em dead on your first day, sis. Dad would have been so proud." The message brought a lump to her throat. Her father had been a beat cop for 30 years in their hometown. He had died 2 years ago, but his influence was the reason she'd joined the force in the first place. "Do it right or don't do it at all," he used to say. She'd lived by those words her entire career. Little did Maya know that her first test as chief wouldn't come during the official meeting at the station. It wouldn't come with speeches or handshakes or formal introductions. It would come right here on these streets, before she even had a chance to put on her badge, and it would change everything about how she approached her new role in Westbrook. She put her phone away and started walking toward City Hall, mentally rehearsing her first address to the officers who would soon be under her command. The words needed to be perfect, firm but not threatening, clear about her expectations but not accusatory about past failures. The morning breeze carried the sounds of the awakening city. Car doors slamming, distant sirens, construction already underway somewhere nearby. Maya took it all in, mapping the city in her mind, connecting what she'd seen on paper to the living, breathing reality around her. This was her city now, and she was determined to make it better. Maya was only 3 blocks from City Hall when she heard raised voices coming from the corner ahead. A police cruiser was parked at an angle near the bus stop, its lights flashing silently. Two officers stood over a young black teenager who had his hands up, his backpack on the ground next to him. "I told you I'm just waiting for the bus to school," the boy was saying, his voice cracking slightly. He couldn't have been more than 16 years old. "Sure you are," said the taller officer, a white man with a crew cut and sunglasses despite the cloudy morning. His name tag read Jenkins. "And I suppose that backpack is just full of textbooks, right?" The second officer, Barrett according to his tag, was going through the boy's backpack, pulling out notebooks and dumping them on the ground. "Hey, those are my school notes," the teenager protested, moving slightly toward his belongings. Officer Jenkins immediately pushed him back against the bus stop sign. "Don't move unless I tell you to move." Maya hesitated only for a moment. She wasn't in uniform. She hadn't even officially started her job yet, but what she was witnessing was exactly the problem she'd been hired to fix. She approached slowly, keeping her hands visible. "Excuse me, officers. Is there a problem here?" Both officers turned to look at her. Jenkins frowned. "Ma'am, please step back. This is police business." "I can see that," Maya said calmly. "I'm just wondering what this young man has done." The teenager looked at her with a mix of surprise and gratitude, though he remained frozen in place, hands still halfway raised. Barrett stood up from the backpack. "Ma'am, I'm not going to ask you again. This is an official police matter. Move along." Maya took a step closer instead. "I understand, but I'd like to know what probable cause you have for searching this young man's belongings." Jenkins moved toward her now, his hand instinctively moving to rest on his holstered weapon. "Are you a lawyer or something? Because unless you are, you need to back up right now." "I'm a concerned citizen," Maya replied, keeping her voice steady despite the adrenaline now pumping through her system. "And I don't see any reason for this kind of treatment of a student waiting for his bus." By now, a few passers-by had slowed down to watch the interaction. Someone had taken out their phone and was recording. "That's it," Jenkins said, stepping forward and grabbing Maya's arm roughly. "You're interfering with police business." Maya didn't resist, but she didn't back down either. "Officer Jenkins, I haven't done anything wrong. I'm simply asking questions which I have every right to do." The fact that she knew his name seemed to surprise him for a second, but he quickly recovered. "Hands against the car," he ordered, spinning her around and pushing her toward the police cruiser. "This is unnecessary," Maya said, still keeping her voice calm even as Jenkins roughly pressed her against the vehicle. She could feel the cold metal of the car against her cheek. Behind her, she heard the teenager protesting. "She didn't do anything. Why are you arresting her?" "Shut up," Barrett snapped at the boy. "You're next." Maya felt Jenkins patting her down, his movements unnecessarily rough. "What's your name?" he demanded. "Dr. Maya Richardson," she answered clearly, aware of the growing crowd of onlookers. Several people had their phones out now. "Well, Dr. Richardson," Jenkins said mockingly, "you picked the wrong officers to mess with today. ID in your pocket?" "Yes, in my right jacket pocket," she replied, "along with my credentials." Jenkins reached into her pocket and pulled out her wallet. As he flipped it open, Maya heard Barrett approaching. "What's the holdup, Jenkins? Let's get them both in the car and sort it out at the station." "Resisting arrest, interfering with police business," Jenkins was saying, seemingly listing the charges he planned to file. "Maybe disorderly conduct, too." His voice trailed off as he pulled out her ID and saw the official police credentials attached to it. There was a moment of complete silence. "Is there a problem, Officer Jenkins?" Maya asked, her face still pressed against the police car. Barrett leaned in. "What is it?" Jenkins cleared his throat, suddenly sounding very different. She's... Maya felt the pressure on her back ease slightly. She turned her head enough to see Jenkins' face, which had gone remarkably pale. "Dr. Maya Richardson," she stated clearly, for the benefit of everyone listening. "I'm the new police chief of Westbrook. Today is my first day." The silence that followed was deafening. Barrett's mouth literally fell open. Jenkins took a step back, her ID and credentials still in his hand. "Chief," he managed to say, his voice barely above a whisper. Around them, the murmurs from the crowd grew louder. Someone laughed nervously. The teenager at the bus stop looked as shocked as the officers. Maya straightened up, adjusting her now wrinkled jacket. She held out her hand. "I believe those are mine, officer." Jenkins handed back her ID with visibly shaking hands. "Ma'am." "Chief. We didn't know." "Clearly," Maya said, taking her credentials and slipping them back into her pocket. She turned to the teenager. "Young man, what's your name?" The boy swallowed hard. "Anthony Wilson, ma'am." "Anthony, are you all right?" He nodded, still looking uncertain. "What school do you attend?" "Westbrook High. I'm a junior." Maya nodded, then turned back to the officers who still stood frozen in disbelief. "Officers, I'd like you to help Anthony gather his belongings that you've scattered, and then I want both of you to meet me at the station in exactly 1 hour." Jenkins found his voice again. "Chief, we were just doing our job. This area has had problems with—" Maya held up her hand, stopping him mid-sentence. "1 hour, officers. We'll discuss your approach to doing your job then." She turned to the teenager again. "Anthony, will you miss your bus now?" He nodded. "Yes, ma'am. It came and left while." He gestured vaguely at the scene. "Then these officers will give you a ride to school." "Isn't that right, officers?" Barrett nodded quickly. "Yes, of course, Chief." Maya took out a business card she'd had made before moving to Westbrook and handed it to Anthony. "If you have any more trouble, or if you want to talk about what happened here today, call me directly." The boy took the card, looking at it with wide eyes. "Thank you." Maya glanced at her watch. It was 8:15 a.m. Her official introduction at the police department was scheduled for 9 a.m. This was certainly not how she had planned to start her day or meet her first officers. But perhaps it was exactly what needed to happen. The police station of Westbrook was a brick building from the 1970s, with an American flag hanging limply from a pole out front. Maya arrived 15 minutes early for her official introduction, but the news of what had happened on the street had somehow beaten her there. As she walked through the front doors, the usual buzz of activity in the lobby came to an abrupt halt. Eyes turned toward her, conversation stopped mid-sentence, and a coffee cup nearly slipped from someone's hand. The desk sergeant, a woman in her 50s with graying hair pulled back in a tight bun, stared at Maya with wide eyes. "Dr. Richardson?" she asked hesitantly. "That's right," Maya confirmed, extending her hand. "And you are?" "Sergeant Donna Patel," the woman replied, shaking Maya's hand with a firm grip that betrayed her surprise. We're expecting you at 9, ma'am." "I know. I'm early. Is Mayor Chen here yet?" "Yes, ma'am. He's waiting in the conference room with Captain Rodriguez." Maya nodded. "Thank you, Sergeant Patel. I know my way." She'd studied the building layout in advance, another part of her thorough preparation for this job. As she walked down the hallway, she could feel eyes following her. An officer coming from the opposite direction flattened himself against the wall to let her pass, almost comically. Word traveled fast in small departments. The conference room door was open. Inside, Mayor Chen was checking his watch while a man in a captain's uniform, presumably Rodriguez, was scrolling through his phone with a frown. "Dr. Richardson," Mayor Chen said, looking up and spotting her in the doorway. He was a compact man in his 60s with salt and pepper hair and laugh lines around his eyes, though he wasn't laughing now. "We heard there was an incident." "News travels fast," Maya said, stepping into the room. "Yes, I had an interesting introduction to Officers Jenkins and Barrett this morning." Captain Rodriguez put his phone down. "Chief, I want to apologize for—" Maya held up a hand. "Captain, I presume you're Michael Rodriguez?" He nodded. "Yes, ma'am." "Then you and I will have plenty of time to discuss department matters, including what happened this morning. But right now I'd like to meet the rest of the officers as planned." Mayor Chen cleared his throat. "Of course. Everyone's gathered in the briefing room. They're waiting and talking." Maya smiled slightly. "I bet they are." As they walked toward the briefing room, Mayor Chen leaned in. "This isn't exactly how I planned your first day to go." "Sometimes the universe has other plans, Mayor," Maya replied quietly. "But I think this might actually work in our favor." "How do you figure?" I just got a crash course in exactly what needs to change in this department. And every officer in that room already knows it. They reached the briefing room, a large space with rows of chairs facing a podium at the front. The room fell silent as Maya entered. About 40 officers in uniform were seated, with a few standing at the back. Every eye was on her. Maya spotted Jenkins and Barrett sitting in the back row, looking like they'd rather be anywhere else. Jenkins had removed his sunglasses, revealing bloodshot eyes. Barrett was staring at the floor. Mayor Chen stepped up to the podium first. Good morning, everyone. As you know, today we're welcoming our new police chief, Dr. Maya Richardson. Dr. Richardson comes to us with 15 years of experience in law enforcement, including 5 years as deputy chief in Harbor City, where she oversaw a successful department-wide reform initiative that reduced complaints against officers by 60% while improving crime clearance rates. He paused, looking around the room. I understand there's been some irregular circumstances this morning. I'll let Chief Richardson address that herself. He stepped back, gesturing for Maya to take the podium. Maya walked up slowly, taking in the faces before her. Some curious, some hostile, some embarrassed, some simply waiting to see what would happen next. Good morning, she began, her voice clear and steady. This isn't exactly how I planned to meet all of you today. A nervous chuckle rippled through the room. But sometimes unplanned moments reveal the most truth, she continued. So let me be honest with you all. What I witnessed this morning between Officers Jenkins and Barrett and a teenager waiting for his school bus was exactly why I was hired. She paused, letting that sink in. I could stand here and talk about my credentials, my philosophy of policing, my plans for this department, and we'll get to all of that. But right now I want to talk about what happened on that street corner. She looked directly at Jenkins and Barrett. Officers Jenkins and Barrett, would you please stand up? Slowly, reluctantly, they rose to their feet. Jenkins looked like he might be sick. These officers, Maya said, addressing the whole room, had no legal reason to stop that young man. They had no probable cause to search his belongings. When questioned by a civilian, me, they responded with hostility and excessive force. The room was so quiet you could hear the air conditioning humming. And when they discovered who I was, Maya continued, they looked exactly like they do now. Scared, because they knew they'd made a mistake. She let that hang in the air for a moment, then softened her tone slightly. Here's what I want everyone in this room to understand. I'm not here to fire people. I'm not here to punish past mistakes. I'm here to create a better police department, one that serves this community with respect and integrity, one that follows the law while enforcing it. She looked around the room, meeting as many eyes as she could. Some of you may not like having an outsider come in to lead this department. Some of you may not like having a woman as your chief, or a black woman at that. Some of you may think that what Officers Jenkins and Barrett did this morning was perfectly fine police work. She paused again. If that's what you believe, I invite you to my office any time to discuss it. My door will always be open. But know this, changes are coming to this department. Not because I say so, but because this community deserves better. Maya stepped away from the podium, walking toward Jenkins and Barrett, who were still standing. Officers, I still want to see you in my office after this meeting. You're not being fired today, but we have a lot to talk about. She turned back to face the room. I believe in second chances. I believe in learning from mistakes. And I believe that most of you became police officers because you wanted to help people, to make a difference. She returned to the podium. That's what we're going to do together. Make a difference, not through intimidation or fear, but through respect, training, and community engagement. Mayor Chen stepped forward again. Thank you, Chief Richardson. I think I speak for the City Council when I say this is exactly why we hired you. He turned to the assembled officers. There will be a community reception for Chief Richardson at City Hall this afternoon at 4. I encourage all of you to attend. As the meeting broke up, officers began filing out of the room. Some nodded respectfully to Maya. Others avoided eye contact entirely. A few lingered, seemingly wanting to speak with her but not quite ready to approach. Captain Rodriguez came up beside her. That was direct, Chief. Is there any other way to be, Captain? He considered this, then shook his head. I suppose not. But it's not what they're used to. Then they better get used to it fast, Maya replied, watching Jenkins and Barrett waiting anxiously by the door. Because this is just the beginning. Maya's office was smaller than she'd expected, with beige walls and outdated furniture that had seen better days. The only window overlooked the parking lot. On the desk sat a computer that belonged in a museum and a nameplate that still bore the name of her predecessor, Chief Walter Simmons. She removed the nameplate and placed it in a drawer just as a knock came at the door. "Come in," she called, settling into the creaking office chair. Jenkins and Barrett entered, standing at attention just inside the doorway. They'd clearly had time to compose themselves since the meeting, but the nervousness was still evident in their stiff postures. "Close the door and have a seat." "Officers," Maya instructed. They did as they were told, each taking one of the two chairs facing her desk. Barrett's knee was bouncing slightly. Jenkins kept his gaze fixed somewhere over Maya's shoulder. "I've asked Captain Rodriguez and the department's legal counsel to join us," Maya said. "They should be here any—" Another knock at the door interrupted her. Captain Rodriguez entered, followed by a woman in a charcoal gray suit carrying a leather portfolio. "Chief Richardson, this is Nancy Okafor, the department's legal counsel," Rodriguez said, making the introduction. The woman stepped forward, extending her hand. "Chief, I've heard a lot about you already." "I bet you have," Maya replied with a small smile, shaking her hand. "Thank you for coming on such short notice." Once everyone was seated, Maya leaned forward, resting her elbows on the desk. "Let me be clear about something," she began. "This meeting isn't just about what happened this morning. It's about a pattern of behavior in this department that needs to change. You two just happened to provide a perfect example of it on my first day." Jenkins cleared his throat. "Chief, with all due respect—" "Let me finish, officer," Maya interrupted firmly. "I've reviewed both your files. Officer Jenkins, you've had 7 citizen complaints in the last 2 years for excessive force. Officer Barrett, you've had 4, plus 2 for conducting searches without proper cause." She let that sit for a moment. None of those complaints resulted in any disciplinary action. "Do you know why?" Neither officer spoke. "I'll tell you why," Maya continued. "Because this department has a history of dismissing citizen complaints without proper investigation. That changes today." Nancy Okafor opened her portfolio and pulled out some papers. "Chief, I've taken the liberty of pulling the body camera footage from this morning's incident. Both officers were wearing their cameras as required." "Excellent," Maya said. "I'd like to review that footage now." Barrett shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "Ma'am, is that really necessary? We admit we made a mistake." "It's necessary," Maya stated firmly. Captain Rodriguez connected a laptop to a small monitor on the side table. After a few clicks, the screen displayed the scene from earlier that morning, from Officer Jenkins' perspective. They watched in silence as the footage showed Jenkins and Barrett approaching the teenager at the bus stop. There was no greeting, no explanation for why they were stopping him. Just an immediate demand for ID and a command to put his hands where they could see them. The boy, Anthony, complied immediately, his confusion and fear evident. "What did I do?" "Just routine," Jenkins' voice came through the speakers. "There have been reports of drug dealing at this bus stop." Maya paused the video. "Was that true, officer? Were there specific reports of drug activity at that location?" Jenkins hesitated. "Not specific reports, no, but that area has had issues in the past." "So you lied to the young man," Maya stated flatly, then resumed the video. They continued watching as the officers became increasingly aggressive despite Anthony's cooperation. When Maya entered the frame, the change in Jenkins' demeanor was immediate. His posture became more rigid, his tone more authoritative. The video showed exactly what had happened. Maya asking reasonable questions, Jenkins escalating to physical contact without provocation, and then the moment of revelation when he discovered her identity. When the video ended, the room was silent. "That's assault," Nancy Okafor said quietly, "and an illegal search." "Yes, it is," Maya agreed. "If I were any other citizen, I could file charges against you, Officer Jenkins, and I would win." Jenkins' face had gone pale again. "Chief, I'm not going to file charges," Maya interrupted. "And I'm not going to fire either of you. At least not today." Both officers looked up in surprise. "Instead, here's what's going to happen," Maya continued. "First, you're both going to write formal apologies to Anthony Wilson. I've already spoken with his mother, and she has agreed not to pursue legal action against you or the department, provided certain conditions are met. Barrett visibly relaxed slightly. Those conditions, Maya went on, include both of you being reassigned to the Community Service Division for the next 3 months. You'll be working directly with the youth programs at the community center, including the after-school tutoring program that Anthony attends. Jenkins frowned. With all due respect, Chief, that's not real police work. Building relationships with the community is the most real police work there is, Officer Jenkins, Maya replied sharply. You'll also both be required to complete additional training in de-escalation techniques, implicit bias, and proper search procedures. She leaned back in her chair. Consider yourselves on probation. Any further incidents like this one and you will be terminated. Is that understood? Both officers nodded stiffly. One last thing, Maya said, pulling a folder from her desk drawer. This morning's incident is going to serve another purpose. I've called a special department meeting for tomorrow morning. The body camera footage will be shown, along with footage captured by bystanders. You're going to publicly humiliate us? Barrett asked, his voice tight. No, Officer Barrett. I'm going to use this as a teaching moment for the entire department. The footage will be anonymized. Your faces won't be shown, but every officer needs to see what happened and understand why it was wrong. Captain Rodriguez, who had been silent until now, spoke up. Chief, this is unconventional. So is assaulting your new boss on her first day, Maya replied evenly. But this isn't about punishment. It's about improvement. She turned back to the officers. You're dismissed for now. Report to Sergeant Patel for your new assignments. After the officers left, Captain Rodriguez lingered. You're taking a risk, Chief. Using their mistake as a department-wide example might not sit well with some of the senior officers. I'm counting on that. Captain, Maya said, beginning to unpack her personal items onto the desk. The officers who have a problem with it are exactly the ones who need to see it most. Nancy Okafor closed her portfolio. Legally speaking, your approach is sound. But Rodriguez is right. You'll make enemies. I didn't take this job to make friends, Maya replied, placing a framed photo of her father in his police uniform on the desk. I took it to make a difference. After Rodriguez and Okafor left, Maya sat alone in her office, staring at her father's photo. Well, Dad, she said quietly, this is definitely not how I thought my first day would go. Her phone buzzed with a message from the mayor. Heard about your meeting with Jenkins and Barrett. Bold move, City Council wants an update. Dinner tonight? As she typed her reply, there was another knock at her door. Come in, she called. The door opened to reveal Sergeant Patel. Chief? There's someone here to see you. Says you gave him your card this morning. Maya looked up in surprise. Anthony Wilson? Patel nodded. Should I tell him you're busy? No, send him in, Maya said, standing up. And Sergeant, could you bring us some sodas from the break room? A moment later, Anthony entered, still in his school clothes, his backpack slung over one shoulder. He looked around the office nervously. Anthony, come in, Maya said warmly. Have a seat. Sergeant Patel is bringing us some drinks. The boy sat down cautiously. I hope it's okay that I came. My last class ended early and it's absolutely okay, Maya assured him. In fact, I'm glad you did. I wanted to make sure you were all right after what happened this morning. Anthony seemed to relax a little. I'm okay. My mom was pretty upset when I told her, though. I spoke with her earlier, Maya said. She had every right to be upset. She said you called her personally, Anthony said. That's not normal. Usually when stuff like this happens, nobody cares. The simple truth of his statement hit Maya hard. Well, I care, Anthony. And things are going to be different around here from now on. Sergeant Patel returned with 2 cans of soda, placing them on the desk before leaving. Actually, Maya said, leaning forward, I have a proposition for you. I'm starting a youth advisory council for the police department, a group of young people who can give us perspective on how our policies affect them, what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong. Anthony looked surprised. You want me to be on it? I want you to help me create it, Maya said. What happened to you this morning should never happen to anyone. But it did happen, and now we have a chance to use that experience to make things better. For the first time since she'd met him, Anthony smiled. That sounds pretty cool, actually. It won't be easy, Maya warned. Some officers won't like it. Some people in the community might not either. Anthony shrugged. Nothing worth doing is ever easy, right? That's what my mom always says. Maya smiled. Your mom sounds like a wise woman. As they continued talking, Maya felt a sense of purpose solidifying within her. The day had begun with an act of injustice, but it was ending with the seeds of change being planted. This was why she had come to Westbrook. This was the work she was meant to do. 6 months passed in a blur of meetings, trainings, policy revisions, and community events. Maya had known that changing the culture of the Westbrook Police Department wouldn't happen overnight. But even she was surprised by how much resistance she encountered, and by how much progress they'd made despite it. The morning sun streamed through the blinds of her office, which looked considerably different now. She'd replaced the ancient computer, repainted the walls a warm blue, and added plants that somehow managed to thrive despite her inconsistent watering schedule. Photos and community awards now decorated the walls, alongside a framed copy of the department's new mission statement, which had been created with input from both officers and community members. A knock on the door interrupted her thoughts. "Come in," she called, looking up from the report she was reviewing. Captain Rodriguez entered, looking more relaxed than he had 6 months ago. Their relationship had evolved from wary professional courtesy to genuine mutual respect. "Morning, Chief. The quarterly numbers are in," he said, placing a folder on her desk. "Thought you'd want to see them right away." Maya opened the folder eagerly. They'd been implementing changes steadily, but this would be the first comprehensive data showing whether those changes were making a real difference. Her eyes scanned the pages, and a smile spread across her face. "Use of force incidents down 37%, she read aloud. "Citizen complaints down 42%, officer injury rates down 20%, and crime clearance rates up 11%. Rodriguez nodded, unable to hide his own smile. "The numbers don't lie, Chief. What you're doing is working." "What we're doing," Maya corrected him. "This isn't just me." "Fair enough," he conceded. "But it wouldn't be happening without you. Especially after how you started. That first day set the tone for everything that followed." Maya laughed softly, remembering. "Not exactly how I planned to introduce myself." "Sometimes the universe has other plans," Rodriguez said, echoing her own words from that first day. "Don't tell me you're getting philosophical on me now, Captain," Maya teased. "Must be your influence," he replied with a shrug. "By the way, Officers Jenkins and Barrett are waiting outside. Their community service assignment officially ended last week, but they asked to speak with you." Maya raised an eyebrow. "Both of them? Together?" "Yep, said it was important." "Send them in," Maya said, curious. Rodriguez opened the door and gestured for the officers to enter. Jenkins and Barrett walked in, looking vastly different from the defensive, angry men who had sat in those same chairs 6 months ago. "Chief," Jenkins greeted her with a respectful nod. "Thanks for seeing us." "Have a seat," Maya offered. "What can I do for you?" The two officers exchanged a glance before Barrett spoke up. "Our assignment at the community center ended last week." "I'm aware," Maya said. "Captain Rodriguez has given me positive reports about your work there. I understand you've both shown significant improvement in your interactions with the public." "That's partly why we're here," Jenkins said, seeming unusually hesitant. "We've been talking, and we'd like to request a permanent transfer to the Community Service Division." Maya blinked in surprise. These were two officers who 6 months ago had scoffed at community service as not real police work. "A permanent transfer?" she repeated. "Both of you?" Barrett nodded. "Yes, ma'am. We've started a basketball program with the kids at the center. It's been really good. For them and for us. Anthony Wilson is one of our regular players now," Jenkins added. "Kid's got a decent jump shot." Maya leaned back in her chair, studying them. "I have to say, this isn't what I expected when you asked to meet with me." "Honestly, Chief, it's not what we expected either," Barrett admitted. "When you first assigned us there, we thought it was punishment. And maybe it was, but it's also been educational," Jenkins finished for him. "It's changed how we see things, how we see our job." Maya felt a surge of satisfaction. This was exactly what she'd hoped for. Not just compliance with new policies, but a genuine shift in perspective. "I'll approve the transfers," she said. "On one condition." "What's that?" Jenkins asked. "I want you both to help develop a training module based on your experience, something we can use with all officers, especially new recruits." The two men nodded in agreement. "We've actually already started putting something together," Barrett said. Anthony and some of the other kids have been helping us. They're pretty insightful about what makes a good cop versus a bad one, from their perspective. I bet they are, Maya said with a smile. Get me a proposal by next week and we'll take it from there. After they left, Rodriguez lingered, an amused expression on his face. What? Maya asked. Nothing, he said. Just thinking about how different things are now compared to 6 months ago. Those two were among your biggest critics when you started. People can change, Maya said. They just need the right motivation and opportunity. Speaking of changes, Rodriguez said, did you see the article in the Westbrook Tribune this morning? They're calling our department a model of reform for other cities to follow. Maya had seen it. The article had highlighted the department's new initiatives, the Youth Advisory Council that Anthony had helped establish, the de-escalation training program, the Civilian Review Board, and the community policing efforts that had officers regularly engaging with residents in non-enforcement settings. It's a good start, she said modestly, but we still have a long way to go. Always the perfectionist, Rodriguez teased. Oh, I almost forgot, the mayor called. He wants to increase our budget for next year, to expand the community programs. Seems the city council has been impressed with the results. Maya smiled at that. Budget increases were rare in municipal government, and this one represented a vote of confidence in their new direction. One more thing before I go, Rodriguez said, pulling an envelope from his pocket. This came for you. Hand-delivered by Anthony Wilson. Maya took the envelope, opening it as Rodriguez left. Inside was an invitation, handmade with colorful markers. You are invited to Westbrook High's Career Day. Anthony Wilson would like to request that Police Chief Dr. Maya Richardson speak to students about careers in law enforcement and community service. Please say yes. At the bottom, Anthony had written a personal note. Chief Richardson, thanks for showing me that one person really can change things. You're making a difference. Maya felt a lump in her throat as she read the note. She remembered her first morning in Westbrook, sitting in that coffee shop making lists of all the things she wanted to accomplish. Some of those goals had been met. Others were still works in progress. But the most important change couldn't be quantified in a quarterly report or measured in statistics. It was the change in people like Jenkins and Barrett. The change in young people like Anthony, who might now consider a career in law enforcement instead of fearing the police. The change in the community's perception of the department, from an occupying force to a partner in safety and well-being. Her phone buzzed with a message from her sister. Saw the article about Westbrook PD. Dad would be so proud of you, sis. You're changing the world one police department at a time. Maya smiled, looking at her father's photo on her desk. One department at a time, she repeated softly. A knock at her open door made her look up. Sergeant Patel stood there with a young woman in a police cadet uniform. Chief, this is Cadet Jasmine Chen, the mayor's niece. She just started at the academy and wanted to meet you. The young woman stepped forward eagerly. It's an honor, Chief Richardson. Your reform work is why I decided to become an officer. I want to be part of the change. Maya stood up to shake her hand. Welcome to the force, Cadet Chen. The change is just beginning. As she gave the young cadet a tour of the station, introducing her to officers and staff, Maya reflected on the strange twist of fate that had marked her first day in Westbrook. If she hadn't stopped for coffee that morning, if she hadn't walked past that bus stop at that exact moment, if Jenkins and Barrett hadn't been the officers on patrol in that area, but maybe it wasn't fate at all. Maybe it was simply that the problems in the department had been so pervasive that she was bound to encounter them sooner or later. The incident on her first day hadn't created the need for change. It had merely illuminated it in the starkest possible terms. Later that afternoon, Maya stood at the window of her office, watching officers interacting with community. Members in the parking lot where a neighborhood cookout was taking place, another new initiative to build relationships between the police and the public officer. Jenkins was flipping burgers on a grill while Officer Barrett played catch with a group of children, including Anthony Wilson. Nearby, Sergeant Patel was deep in conversation with a group of elderly residents, listening intently to their concerns about traffic safety in their neighborhood. This was what policing should be, Maya thought. Not just enforcing laws, but being part of the community, serving and protecting in the truest sense of those words. The path forward wouldn't always be smooth. There would be setbacks and resistance and hard days ahead. Some officers had resigned rather than adapt to the new culture. Some community members remained skeptical, their trust eroded by years of negative experiences. But standing there, watching the scene below, Maya felt certain they were moving in the right direction. The transformation that had begun with that fateful encounter on her first day was taking root and growing. Sometimes, the most powerful changes started with a single moment, a confrontation that could have ended badly but instead became the catalyst for something better, a mistake acknowledged and learned from, a new chief saying, "This stops now," and a community finally being heard.